Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365. Check out Bet365's 3-goal early payout. When your team goes up by 3, you get paid. It's that simple. Download the app today. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. My name is Dave Woodrelli. I am joined by Harman Dial, and we are coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studios. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. Harm, World Baseball Classic. We talked about it. We pre-recorded today's interview with Scott Wheeler, and at the end, I gloated about my correct Bet365 bet of the day yesterday, that Venezuela would take down the United States. What a game it was. I know you didn't get a chance to watch it. The Canucks were playing. I had my multiple screens going, which I don't do very often. I'm not a big multiple screens guy. I don't like doing that. But what a game. What a game it was. And what a Canucks game it was. I won't make you talk about baseball. I know you don't want to talk about that game, but you were at the Canucks game. You watched that one intently. So let's get into that game. Our opening segment today is brought to you by our friends at Greta, a great spot for all games, home and away. You can skip the line and not pay cover on game nights if you're wearing the home team's gear. And of course, there's also the game day specials at Greta, including $3.33 off select food items, $3.33 for select drinks, and more. With the arcade, bar, and street food menu, Greta's a great spot. Make it your spot to watch the big game, the next game. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. What a game. What a game it was, Harm. The Vancouver Canucks win by a final score. The Canucks beat the Panthers, right? And and again, I feel like we talk a lot about losses on this show, but also we talk a lot about the young guys just looking kind of mid. And also, sorry, I stopped myself right in the middle of saying the final score. It was 5-2. But the young guys, that's what stood out for me is the young guys looked really good. The young defensemen, I thought, looked really good. And I know obviously we're going to talk about the points outburst in the first period, but the young guys to me looked like, I thought that was Tom Villander's best game in a while.
Yeah, I also liked Verlander's game a couple of games ago when he logged over 23 minutes a night. I remember talking about that on the show. I think the important part for me with DPD was seeing the way he bounced back because I actually thought the first half of the game was really rough for him. Breaking pucks out was difficult. He had the catastrophic turnover that left Matthew Tkachuk all alone in front for the Panthers' opening goal. And by the way, it was hilarious being in the building and just seeing how many, or not seeing, but hearing how many boos there were for Tkachuk anytime he touched the puck. When the goal was announced, he was public enemy number one, and it was kind of fun there. But anyway, for DPD, it was a really rough first half of the game, but then to see him bounce back in the second half, I think is really encouraging. I think it was really important. He had the really aggressive pinch in the third period to keep a puck alive in the offensive zone that led to Aatu Ratu's goal. And those types of pinches are so valuable because the other team is positioning as if they've already executed the clean breakout. And we saw this a couple of times where even Marco Rossi's goal, it came sweet pass by Brock Besser off his backhand, but also a great job by Liam Ogren sealing the wall to force a turnover. And in those types of situations, the Panthers think they're free to break out, and that's why there's nobody defending the front of the net when that turnover happens. Happened that exact way on the Rossi goal, and same thing on the Ratu one. And on that Ratu one, that's where you have to give DPD credit. And that was such a bread and butter for his game last year when he had success, was how many plays he was able to keep alive with those aggressive pinches. I think this year we've seen him in the neutral zone step up in spots where he's over aggressive and gets beat. And we haven't seen as many of the pinches lead to productive, positive outcomes. That was certainly one in that Panthers game. And then I think my favorite moment of that game for DPD, or even just the game in general, was him rage baiting Matthew Tkachuk into taking that penalty late in the third period. I was watching how this was developing live, where the Panthers had possession of the puck in the offensive zone. They were hacking at each other, just cross checks, slashes, net front battle. DPD's not giving up an inch. And big picture, this matters too. This isn't just a funny haha moment. It's an in the playoffs, you're going to need big, strong defensemen who aren't going to back down against guys like Matthew Tkachuk. And DPD, he relishes that side of the game. I guarantee you, he loves the idea of battling Tkachuk in front of the net, and you can't teach that aggressiveness, right? Some guys have the size, but they don't have that. They don't have that dog in them, and in that way, DPD is a throwback defender. And I'm just thinking ahead to 5 years from now when the Canucks are hopefully in the playoffs, how much of an asset DPD is going to be, even if he's just on a third pair and doesn't grow a ton in terms of the offensive side. To have him out there on the PK, net front situations, late in game protecting leads, to have that edge and physicality, to not back down from some of the best power forwards in the game, I think that's going to be a massive asset. But to go back to him rage baiting Tkachuk, they were going at each other that entire shift, and then the Canucks got out of their own zone. Both players are going off for a change. DPD gives him a little tap on the shin pads. Tkachuk reacts, turns back, slashes him in the hand. DPD absolutely milked it, by the way. We have to point that out, where he really exaggeratedly starts shaking his hand and he draws a call. But just that game within the game, the same way that Nikita Zadorov became so revered and became a cult hero because of how physical he was, standing up for guys. DPD obviously isn't as big and intimidating as Zadorov per se, but he still has that element to his game. And then even later in the third period, there was a scrum where I think it was Hinostroza headlocking Höglander, and DPD is the first guy in there flying to go after Hinostroza. That part of hockey, that old school edge, is sometimes a little bit of a lost art. I mean, we just talked about how the Maple Leafs had that whole fiasco with the Matthews hit and nobody stepping up. I think that's a really important intangible that DPD brings to the table.
There was a lot of time spent on Elias Pettersson, and it was good time spent on Elias Pettersson. But now we're going to talk about Elias Pettersson, who scored 2 power play goals. Brock Besser picks up 3 assists. Marco Rossi notches a goal and 2 assists. All of that in the opening frame. All of those numbers that I just read all happened in the opening frame. Now, obviously, I know a lot of the attention is going to be on Elias Pettersson scoring the 2 goals, but I really am liking what I'm seeing from Marco Rossi. And that goes for at 5-on-5 and also on the power play on the left half wall. The way he was dishing, the way he was moving north-south along the wall, I really liked what I was seeing from Marco Rossi in that spot.
Yeah, and this is where when he came into the league playing for the Minnesota Wild, because the Wild already had Kaprizov, Boldy, who are basically half-wall power play guys, Rossi, we know the story has been that he's kind of evolved into being a net front scorer guy. And certainly we saw on the goal he scored, he's got terrific hands in tight. And on the goal too, it stood out to me how as soon as he received the puck, he didn't just feel the urgency to, I've got to immediately get it off my stick and shoot. It was forehand, backhand, get Bobrovsky to bite, and then shooting just above the pad. That extra move is really important, and not every player has the poise in that situation when there's been a turnover, and sometimes you don't even expect to get the puck in that spot. It was a terrific pass by Brock. So the poise under pressure and how sweet the hands are, that's important. But to get back to the play he made on the power play to set Elias Pettersson up, he showed that kind of dynamic playmaking and the vision during his junior career, and he was more of a solo driver. I think that's always been part of the conversation for coming to Vancouver is, okay, can you do more of the heavy lifting as a playmaker to drive a line? And in this case, on the power play, I'm still not necessarily convinced that he's going to be a half-wall guy, but as a stopgap before you hopefully get a Gavin McKenna, for example, to see him finding that east-west seam is really encouraging. And that's part of the story for why Pettersson scores and is playing with more confidence now too, is how many times has Elias Pettersson been set up for that seam pass on the power play? How many times has he been teed up perfectly where in today's NHL, to make a goaltender move east-west from post to post, that is probably the most dangerous type of scoring chance in today's NHL outside of a breakaway. when the Canucks are on the power play most times this year, it's usually Pettersson trying to make the pass for somebody else on that left flank because he has the elite skill to actually make that pass. But rarely, ever since JT Miller has been traded, have the Canucks had a left half wall guy who can get it across to Pettersson for that one time, or hell, even a defenseman putting it perfectly in Pettersson's wheelhouse for the one timer. So you hope Rossi in the interim can do that, and then big picture, if you're able to draft a McKenna or a Stenberg, that those guys can be the ones to set Pettersson up more consistently. And we saw for Elias, once he scored the first goal, he had more confidence shooting the puck. He ended the night with 4 shots on goal, 8 attempts. And you look at that second goal he had, yeah, definitely an element of luck to it where it pinballed in off 2 Panthers. But I also don't know if he would have taken that shot last year, right? How many times did he double clutch on the power play and hesitate, not take shots on the man advantage last year? But I think after scoring that first goal, he felt that confidence of, okay, there's a really narrow window. I might not get the shot through, but I'm going to go for it anyway. And got a bounce there, picks up 2 goals. Has to feel nice for him to break out of that goal slump.
We got a message here from Charlie Cole who said, when did PD last score 2 power play goals in one game? The answer? He's never done it. That was the first time. How many more firsts are we going to see for Elias Pettersson in his career at this point, right? Like, next time he hits 100 points, it won't be the first time he's done that. But last night, first time he scored 2 power play goals in one game.
I was also a little bit surprised. Tyson Cole was asking me this in the press box as a little trivia question. How many hat tricks Elias Pettersson has had in his career? This was halfway through the second period, so we were thinking, okay, maybe with an empty netter or something, maybe PD will end up getting a hat trick.
3, 4.
So I guess 2.
Okay.
And the only one that came to my mind was the one in the 18-19 season against the Senators. And I remember it so vividly because Jason Botchford wrote a terrific story about how Travis Green felt the game earlier in New Jersey, how well he was playing, and sort of thought that kind of outburst was coming. But I figured, okay, like there's got to be one more hat trick in there that I must be forgetting about. Turns out that's actually the only hat trick of his career. And I was a little bit surprised. He's actually, Tyson pointed this out, PD has actually had more 2 goal, 3 assist performances in his career than he has hat tricks. So that was a fun piece of trivia.
2 goals, 3 assists. Wow, that's wild.
Hold on. I hate to jump in here, and Tyson, I saw him in the chat, so if he's listening, might have to correct him. According to Hockey Reference, Pettersson had a second hat trick in 2023 against Nashville.
Oh, maybe that's true then.
Yeah.
So maybe I was originally right.
Yeah. According to this, he popped an empty netter to complete a hat trick against the Predators. Now, funny enough, this was a home game. The 2 goal scorers for Nashville that night were Colton Sissons and Dante Fabro, which I'm pointing out because it seems like every time players from BC come to play against the Canucks, they always end up scoring. But that's beside the point. But yes, 2 career hat tricks for Pettersson.
That'd be a really funny bit because Tyson sits next to you in the press box, if I just text him and be like, hey, give Harmon some incorrect info so that he gladly shares it on Canucks Convo.
Yeah, I got gaslit into this.
That's 2 days in a row for you. You never get things wrong. You had Megan Keller, Clayton Keller yesterday, and then today, that's 2 days in a row for you. What's going on?
I just got to start fact checking better. You're rubbing off on me where I'm just like going with things without double checking.
The best part about the Megan Keller, Clayton Keller was I was like, they look alike. You were probably right, and I just told you to keep riding with it. You're not really wrong if you just don't admit you're wrong. I think. Anyway, another thing, last thing from me on the game, then we'll get to anyone else. Little out of order show today because we pre-recorded with Scott Wheeler, so we'll get to that soon. But last thing on the game for me, Harm, Kevin Lankinen, sharp in goal, and I tweeted this out for the first time this season. He's got 3 straight starts with a save percentage above 900. I think it was only 3 other times this year that he's had 2 starts with a save percentage above 900. So this is the first time he's had 3 straight starts with a save percentage above 900. He looked good last night.
And if you look at any of the underlying metrics, the Panthers controlled the play at 5-on-5. Now, of course, the Canucks won the special teams battle, got a couple of power play goals. But at 5-on-5, he had to make a lot of grade A stops, especially in that third period. The Panthers were really pushing. There were some hectic goal mouth scrambles. I still think Lankinen is swimming in his crease a little bit too much. He seems to sometimes overcommit to a play and then be not ready to react if the play develops in the opposite direction. But the way he was fighting through traffic, and there was a lot of it in that game last night, I was really impressed by it. And yeah, he had to, despite the low shot totals in that game for both teams, I thought there were a lot of true grade A chances for both sides. And I thought both goaltenders were really, really busy.
Do you have anything else on last night's game that you want to talk about? I did quickly, and I know we want to get to anyone else, but the post game, they posted the video of the song in the locker room, the German song in the locker room, and everybody dancing to it, and you could also hear the young guys yelling at Brock Besser as he was coming in to the locker room. And I think, I'll tell you this, all right? I think Brock Besser is becoming the team dad. I'll just say it. I think it's happening. I think he's becoming the team dad. I think he's becoming what Chris Tanev was to them.
I could see it. That was
happening. I think it's already happened.
I think that was a really fun clip. And then even just in general with that goal song at the, like after the game, once we were in the locker room, the players were asked about it. And I think one of them mentioned it was an inside joke. A couple others were a little bit confused, not knowing exactly what language it was when it was first played. It is German. But yeah, it kind of goes hard. I'm not going to lie. European techno. I'm not a techno guy, but it went pretty hard. I'm not going to lie.
Yep. Absolutely. European dance music. I can get with that. Absolutely. I can get with that. All right, let's get to anyone else, which is a presentation of our friends at Pacific Toyota Dealers and the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid, a no-compromise approach to electric vehicles that offers the best of both worlds. Drive up to 72 kilometers on battery alone, enough to get you from downtown to the rink, the grocery store, and home to recharge. Seamlessly transition from electric mode to the gas engine for a combined range of 962 kilometers. There's no sacrifices when it comes to horsepower or style with its sleek, low, and wide exterior and sophisticated interior. It's loaded with tech that's actually easy to use. Plug in to recharge at home or at one of the over 2,000 public charging stations in BC alone. Visit shoptoyota.ca, your local Pacific Toyota dealer, today during Red Tag Days from March through May. All right. LC250 pointing out that Brock is the last guy to have played with the Sedins. Kayla Chapman asking if team dad is a good thing. I mean, yes, it is a great thing. I think it's awesome. And I think it's becoming
the Toffoli thing.
Yes, it's exactly. That's what I mean. I think Brock is becoming the team dad, and I think he's becoming that role for these guys. We'll see if I'm right, but that's my hypothesis. I think Brock's becoming the team dad. We have an update on the Jack Hughes story. Did you see this today?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so first, the Hockey Hall of Fame responds, telling Greg Wyshynski, and if you missed it yesterday, folks, Jack Hughes wants his puck that he scored the gold medal winning overtime goal with. He wants the puck, and he was very pointed in how he went about talking about it and said, I don't even know why the Hockey Hall of Fame has it, to be honest. And he actually called it BS. Called it BS that the Hockey Hall of Fame has the puck. Hockey Hall of Fame responded, put it pretty bluntly, and basically said that the puck isn't Jack's to keep, which is true. The other one that I reacted to that I want to talk about, Sidney Crosby was asked about it by your colleague over The Athletic, Josh Yeo. Is it Josh Yeo or Yohe? How's it pronounced? Yohe. Okay. Asked by Josh Yohe for his reaction to Hughes' comments, and Crosby basically shrugged and said, he didn't even think about it that way. I didn't even think about it that way, to be honest with you, Crosby told The Athletic. I was just happy that I scored the goal. I was happy that the puck was going to the Hall of Fame. I didn't even think about it that way. Harm is the GM of Team Short Kings, and you took Jack Hughes with your first round pick. You said, what a leader this guy is. What do you have to say for your player?
Well, he's not the leader. I'm certainly not giving him the C on the Short Kings team.
What about his brother? What about his brother?
Quinn?
Yeah.
We'll have to think long and hard about who gets a C. Maybe Clayton Keller. Although I don't even. Yeah, he is on that team. He's getting the C. He's an NHL captain.
Yep.
He's got the C. He's going to be leading my short Kings. But yeah, in all seriousness, that just shows you how all class Crosby is. And
I know.
the other thing is, this isn't a personal milestone, right? So Kevin Lankinen, he got a puck after winning that game last night. I think it was his 200th career game in NHL. Now I want to like double check this because
it was his 200th game.
Right. So like I was in the locker room talking to Lankinen one-on-one, and one of the trainers hands him the puck. It's like, okay, that's your personal milestone, right? If you score your 400th career goal in the NHL, that's your personal milestone. It makes sense that you get to keep the puck. That wasn't a personal milestone, right? Yes, you were at the center of it. It was an amazing moment for you, but this was a global stage, a massive moment for international hockey. It's the United States that won gold medal, not just Jack Hughes. So I don't understand why he feels he needs to own that puck.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. I have no disagreement other than I would never draft a player like that, like you did so gleefully. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And again, like you said, it does highlight once again for like the millionth time how all class and you know what, like front of the crest, right? Like playing for the crest, playing for your country. It shows what a team guy Sidney Crosby is, and whatever. I don't know. I just think it's funny now. If I don't think we have to keep talking about it. It's entitlement, right? Like it's entitlement from Jack Hughes.
You know what really bothers me though is that he dragged Megan Keller into it, saying she deserves her puck too. She can speak for herself, and everything that I know about Megan Keller, which frankly isn't a lot. I was covering the women's hockey stuff for Daily Faceoff through the Olympics, so I watched all of the U.S. games and I was catching some interviews here and there. I don't think Megan Keller is going to stand by Jack Hughes on this and say, I deserve that puck. I think she's perfectly happy, kind of like Sidney Crosby, to let it live in the Hockey Hall of Fame where it belongs. That's the part I really don't like about Jack Hughes. Don't drag somebody else into it alongside you when like you have no idea how they actually feel about this situation.
Here's a hypothetical question. If the Hockey Hall of Fame was in, let's say, New York City instead of Toronto, do you think Jack Hughes is still requesting that puck? Do you think part of it is, why is our gold medal puck on Canadian soil?
I hadn't considered that.
The thought just crossed my mind. If the Hockey Hall of Fame was in New York City or name your American city, I don't think he'd be as upset. But there must be like I wonder if, and I don't want to speak for Jack obviously, but I wonder if part of it is, why is that puck on Canadian soil? It belongs to us. It belongs to our country. That's our puck.
Which
I obviously don't agree with that line of thinking, but I just had that thought.
I mean, someone brought it up in the chat yesterday. Is there a USA Hockey Hall of Fame? And there is. It's in Minnesota. So if that's the reasoning, fair enough. Then Jack should tell the Hockey Hall of Fame that as the person who scored the goal, he would appreciate it being in Minnesota at the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, in which case I would still probably think he's slightly wrong, but an understandable take.
I think I would just tell him to take a hike like I am now.
Yeah,
just
for
shut
sure,
up,
yeah.
Jack. Stop trying to tell us where to put this puck. Actually, thanks for your input, but we don't really give a crap, which is basically the official stance of the Hockey Hall of Fame today, which I loved. That was great. That they just said, like, actually, we don't really care what Jack Hughes thinks.
You can visit it and check it out like the rest of us.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway. Oh yeah, also gave his jersey away yesterday. USA, of course, lost the World Baseball Classic final against Venezuela, which was great to see. Venezuela, number one baseball nation in the world right now.
Do we know, because all the baseball players wore a specific hockey player's jersey. Do we know who wore Jack Hughes's jersey?
Wasn't it
I'm trying to remember. I want to say it was. I want to say it was Judd,
but it wouldn't fit him.
Well, I mean, Hughes's jersey to fit over shoulder pads would fit Judge without gear on, but
do you think so? Judge is 6'8".
Yeah, hockey jerseys are big. But anyways, if it is Judge, that's pretty funny because Judge had a horrendous game. 3 strikeouts and I think a pop out or something. 2 strikeouts looking. He heard it online afterwards. Like people are blaming that loss solely on Aaron Judge, which isn't necessarily true. But I mean, he was the captain, and as we know in sports,
Big game judge.
Yeah.
He was wearing Matthews, apparently, according to someone in the chat. He was wearing Matthews, which is even funnier.
Yeah. So I'll try and find out who was wearing. A part of me thinks it might have been Harper, who was the only U.S. hitter who actually showed up, hit the 2-run home run. So if it was Harper, then, he almost pulled off his Jack Hughes golden goal baseball version, but Eugenio Suarez saves it for Venezuela.
I like this from Carl Spackler in the chat. He wrote, 2026 Team USA Hockey, miracle on ice, but he spelled miracle M-E, like me. Miracle.
I like it.
I'll leave you with that one. Leave you with that one for today. All right, you guys get to our interview with Scott Wheeler? Yep. All right, we pre-recorded this, folks. Enjoy the rest of the show. Enjoy our pre-recorded interview with Scott Wheeler of The Athletic. Our interview with Scott Wheeler, joining us now, courtesy of our friends over at Tim Hortons. If you feel something exciting in the air, that's because roll-up season is officially back. You can still play on the cup while supplies last, but don't forget to also play on the Tim's app, which means more chances to win just for doing what you already do. Get Tim's. There's a wide range of prizes to be won, gift cards for various brands to physical 5-burner barbecues. I'm hoping for that myself, so I keep saying it out loud. Roll-up season's only around until March 22nd, so don't wait until it's over to realize that you forgot to play. For more info, check out timhortons.ca/rollup. Roll up to win only at Tim's. Let's bring him in now. Scott Wheeler of The Athletic joins us now. Scott, thanks for taking the time today. How you doing?
I'm doing well, fellas. Thanks for having me. I'm in the midst of my busiest stretch of the season here with the sort of height of ramping up for draft coverage. And then right now, my 32 prospect pool rankings, of which the Canucks, which is good news, I guess, for this show, the Canucks still have not dropped. So that'll be around the corner, the Canucks list, and sort of finishing up the last, I think I've got 10 of the 32 pool rankings left to finish. But once I get through that, it'll be full on draft mode.
Do you still get excited, like in your career? Do you still get excited for this time of year? Is it like Christmas morning for you?
I get excited for the pool rankings to be done and for the draft season. So if you're asking whether I get excited for the draft season, yes. Like April, May, June is I love the World Juniors. So maybe that's the true height of it for me in terms of just how much fun I have doing my job. I would say that the World Juniors are probably the peak of that over the course of each season. But the draft cycle is the most exciting in terms of just how busy it is. Like I'll be at the Frozen Four in a couple of weeks in Vegas, and then I'll be back here briefly, and then off to Slovakia for the U18 Worlds. And then when I get back from Slovakia for the U18 Worlds, I'll be off to Kelowna for the Mem Cup, and then the Combine in Buffalo, and then the draft, right? Like all those sort of year-end events happen really quickly. And that part is fun. Like U18s is fun. The Mem Cup and Frozen Four are always fun. And you're sort of putting the finishing touches on your list. Your list sort of looks a lot like other people's lists in a lot of ways, but then you've got guys that you're high on, that you're ready to put your foot down on. And that's always a bit of a thrill once it's out of your hands and you can't change it anymore. That part of it always feels really exciting. So yeah, there's still excitement. This draft class doesn't have that same level of juice that the last few have had. Like we were spoiled. Last year felt this way too. And obviously Schaefer has kind of been even better than everybody imagined. But the two prior to that were really high end, like 2023 and 2024. And it's not just because of Bedard and Celebrini. It was everybody else. You had Nichkov and Demidov and Will Smith and Leo Carlson and Adam Fantilli, and they were just exciting groups. This doesn't feel like that. Like this class isn't that quality, but it's still a very compelling class. And because there hasn't been that sort of clear-cut, obvious first overall pick in the way that we maybe thought Gavin McKenna would be a year or a year and a half ago, I think that's actually made it more compelling at the top. It's going to make the draft feel more live on draft night, less predictable on draft night. So that part, we're going to get some moments. Like we all remember the gasp when Juraj Slavkovsky went first overall. Yeah. I think we're going to get I think we're going to get a little bit of that in the first 5, 6, 7 picks at this draft class, because it could go in any number of ways.
You said something there that kind of piqued my interest, and it was the part about Matthew Schaefer. Because all of us, like draft experts, anybody who was paying attention to the draft, didn't think he would be as impactful as he has been this year. When you look back, what do you think was what? I don't want to say what did we miss, but what do you think he's shown now that we maybe didn't see in his draft year?
Yeah, look, I don't have any regrets about where I was at. I had Matthew Schaefer 1, and I was excited about Matthew Schaefer, and I thought he was a brilliant skater, and we all saw the high moments last year. Like we saw at the inaugural CHL USA Prospects Challenge, like him and Michael Misa weren't even close there. And early on at the World Juniors, he wasn't even like, he was their best defenseman ahead of Sam Dickinson and all the other kids who were on that team, right? And obviously then he crashes into the post and he hurts his collarbone. But I think everybody was in the right place to be reluctant to put him directly into the NHL as an 18-year-old. He was the youngest player, one of the youngest players in that draft class, days away from being eligible for this year's draft, which is almost unbelievable to think about now. He had missed not only a good chunk of his draft season to the collarbone clavicle injury, but also to mono at the start of the year. He didn't have the statistical track record that a typical first overall pick has. Like 20 goals in his rookie season was unfathomable. And yet I didn't think he maybe fit as a kid to go play college, because he needed to play more games than the 30 or 40 games that you can play in college. And then obviously it became clear that going back to Erie and playing this year in the OHL was out of the question once he started playing preseason games as well. So they ultimately made the right decision every step of the way. But it's still, like, looking back, I don't know that with the info that we had, that I would have been any more confident that he was ready for what he's accomplished this year. Like, I think we just have to treat this year as an exciting thing, because that's what it is. This was not to be predicted. There was a lot of uncertainty around what was going to happen with Matthew Schaefer this year.
Scott, you dropped your draft rankings at The Athletic earlier this week. Everybody should go check that out. You always do awesome stuff there. In the January rankings, you had Stenberg 1, but you flipped back to McKenna at 1. And I think most Canucks fans are on board with the idea that, hey, if Vancouver ends up with the number 1 pick, like most of them want to see Gavin McKenna taken there. I think where the conversation becomes really interesting is the possibility of, even if you finish 32nd place, we've run a Tankathon simulator every day that we do this show, and the Canucks keep falling to 3rd. And I think that's the more interesting conversation. I've got a 2-part question for you. Number 1, how significant is the drop-off between the tier 1, which I think is McKenna, Stenberg, and then the next tier, which is, I think, mostly full of defensemen? And then secondly, I think for a while, many were looking at Keaton Verhoff as the best defenseman in this class. And a lot of Canucks fans have even talked about, if you end up with 3rd overall pick, he should be the slam dunk there. You had Chase Reed there at number 3. And I had already been thinking that Reed wasn't getting enough attention in terms of perhaps being the best D-man in this class. And you actually had Verhoff 5th. So I wanted to ask you, again, how significant do you think the drop-off is between that first tier and then the defenseman? And then secondly, just tell us about this race for the best D-man in this class and why you've got Reed over Verhoff right now.
The answer to the first question is a complicated one, because there are a group of scouts that you'll speak to who will say that Gavin McKenna and Ivar Stenberg have been the top prospects in this draft class all along, that they're the premium talents, that from an upside, from an offense, from a power play standpoint, they are going to have a larger impact than the defensemen in this class. And yet was a growing group, especially through the middle of the season, from October through to the World Juniors. So that maybe not the middle of the season, but that first sort of third of the season, there was a growing group that still persists, a not small group that still persists, that felt that there were 7 or 8 names that could understandably be in the conversation for first overall, and that Gavin McKenna, because of his flaws, because of some of the criticisms that people have of him, and that is lack of detail, lack of effort off the puck, perimeter play, not being competitive enough at times because of those concerns and because of the fact that he's a scrawny 5'11", 6-foot winger, that the other defensemen in this class, if you believe that they're a first pairing defenseman, the other defensemen in this class belong in that conversation. And I just haven't been able to quite get there with the other D. I've had 5 lists out. I do 7 lists for every draft class, basically every other month in advance of the draft for about a year. I do a list. So every 2 months, you're getting a new update from me. And I have had on 4 lists so far, Gavin McKenna at number 1 and on 1, Ivar Stenberg, but they have been 1 and 2 on all 5 of my lists. So I haven't quite maybe seen the variance in this class that many others have. I like Chase Reed a lot. Like, Chase Reed is one of the stories of this draft. A year and a half ago, Chase Reed was playing in the Null. Now he's one of the best defensemen in junior hockey. He was just yesterday in the OHL coaches poll named a top 3 defenseman in his conference in the OHL as an offensive defenseman and as a defensive defenseman. His growth on the defensive side of the puck has been the most important piece because it was a work in progress when he first got to the Sioux, and now it's become more and more of a strength. He skates well. He's got good size. But there's just, I don't view Chase Reed as a true sort of future number 1. Like, I don't think he's going to be competing for Norris trophies and that kind of a thing. And the same goes for Albert Smits. Like, I love Albert Smits. I think I'm higher on Albert Smits than most people are. And there's a lot of people who are very high on Alberts right now. But I think you're looking at kind of that, for all of these guys, you're looking at kind of that Owen Power, Jake Sanderson, that Moritz Seider, that kind of tier of a defenseman. I don't think we're talking about a Cale Makar or a Quinn Hughes or what Zach Werenski has been the last couple of years. Maybe you might get, maybe one of these guys kind of gets into that Miro Heiskanen tier. So then you've got to make that calculus. And I just haven't been like, if these guys all become number 2s, that's still a 24, 25 minute a night defenseman. That's a player who makes $8 million, maybe instead of $10 million. That's a high end talent. Maybe one of these guys pops off one year and gets into the Norris conversation, that kind of thing. But they all have little quirks. Like Smits relies heavily on instincts. Reed, I'm not sure whether, despite the growth in his defensive game, whether he's ever going to be a truly number 1 defender. And then Verhoff, I've had concerns about Verhoff's decision-making in his boots dating back to the first time when I saw him play live in Sarnia at U17 Worlds a year and a half ago. And those concerns have kind of persisted to the point where I'm just not completely sold on his feet. He's actually skates well, Verhoff, but turning back to get pucks, pivots against the rush, those little things, he can struggle and get burned. And then the decision-making with the puck, he coughs it up a lot. He makes a lot of mistakes on the puck, despite being extremely talented offensively. And all of those things have just made me a little reserved with those guys. And I have reservations with Stenberg and with McKenna as well. But I have a lot of confidence that both those guys at minimum are going to be highly productive PP1 wingers in the NHL. And I know we like to sort of put that premium on centers and defensemen. But I think you risk missing on a premium winger with one of those two if you get too carried away.
One guy we've seen fall down the rankings everywhere is Tynan Lawrence, down to 9 on your list this time around. And I noticed also just the centers, like the first available center after all the defensemen that are gone. You've got Ryan Lind in the top 6 as well. Like Viggo Bjork is number 8 on your list. What's the story with the centers and Tynan Lawrence specifically? We saw him a lot higher on other rankings.
Yeah, I view those 3 centers in the same group. I think you've got McKenna and Stenberg. Then you've got any number of 4 or 5D. You can order them about any way you want. There are people who we didn't even talk about, Carson Karls, people who view Carson Karls as the first or second best defenseman in this class. And I think he's got a case to be that, even though he's 4th or 5th on my list. All of those guys are top 6, 7 picks, those sort of core D, with the exception of Ryan Lind, who's going to go later. He's going to go in the teens, potentially even the 20s. Lind's just a player that I'm a big believer in. But I view that the conversation this year has sort of centered around the top center in the draft being Caleb early on, Tynan Lawrence, and then more recently, frankly, not more recently, because it's been a long time now that he's been in the conversation, but really since his strong start in Brantford, Caleb Malhotra, right? So that has been the conversation. Which one of those two goes first? Sitting here today, I think the the odds are, and frankly, it's not even 50-50 anymore. The odds is that it's going to be Caleb Malhotra. I think Caleb is going to be picked in front of Tynan on draft day. And I could see Caleb going as high as 3 or 4. I could see the Canucks taking Caleb. That has been the conversation. I think Viggo Bjork belongs in that conversation with those two. I think Viggo, despite the fact that he's 5'9", 5'10", I think Viggo is a premium prospect. From a statistical data standpoint, he is as accomplished as any non-McKenna Stenberg forward in this class. Broke J18 and J20 scoring records, has produced in the SHL this season, has been a first-line center in the back third of this SHL season after playing mostly third-line wing in the front half of the year before he went off to the World Juniors, was one of the very best players at the World Juniors, and debatably for much of that tournament, the more impactful draft eligible than Stenberg on that Swedish team. Stenberg's 2 best games were the last 2 games in the semi and in the gold medal game. There's a lot to like about Bjork. Like he's competitive. He's in the mix. He's extremely smart. He's crafty. He's skilled. He can play make. But the size will likely result that both Caleb and Tynan are taken in front of him. And as a result, I think there's potential value there. And oddly enough, one of the comps that we've kind of thrown around for him is Marco Rossi. I think I like Viggo, and I liked Marco a lot in his draft year. I was probably too high on Marco in his draft year. I think Viggo is probably a slightly better prospect at this stage than Rossi was, but both sort of in a similar tier. And I think that in this class, with how weak this class feels to me, and it is a below average class for me, I think that Viggo belongs right around 10, even if he does go 13 or 14 or 15 or in that range.
I'm going to get back to asking you about the draft, but before we do that, I remember you do a separate project in the summer every year where you look at the prospects that have already been drafted to NHL teams and you rank them. So that would have included guys this past summer like Matthew Schaefer, Michael Misa, who are drafted but not yet established in the big leagues. And I remember you had Zeev Buium as the 5th best prospect in hockey in that project. He's, of course, made the transition to the NHL this year. His play's been a little bit up and down for sure. Maybe hasn't he's maybe had more highs and lows than we expected, but still exceptionally young. First of all, why have you been really high on Zeev Buium? What do you see in his game? Do you see him having star level upside? And has anything you've seen from him this season changed that projection?
Well, I think you need to start the conversation with any defenseman who's as young as Zeev is with just how young they are and how hard it is to be a young defenseman in the NHL. It's getting harder, not easier for defensemen, despite the fact that more and more forwards are breaking into the league and having an impact. And we're seeing guys like Ben Kindle and Beckett Seneca have success. I actually think it's become harder over the years for young defensemen to have that same kind of impact. You go through the list of U22, U23D in the NHL right now. They are almost all, other than Simon Edvinsson and Lane Hudson, they are almost all having a very, very, very difficult time. David Jiricek, 6th overall pick. Simon Nemec, 2nd overall pick. Even Denton Mateychuk has had some ups and downs. It took Brant Clark multiple years of bouncing between the NHL and the AHL for Brant to figure it out. And Brant has frankly had a quietly excellent year this year for LA. But it's hard, man. Like it's a hard league. Owen Power is still figuring it out, right? Like it's just going to take time. He's in his draft +2 at this same age. Lane Hudson was still playing in college hockey this season. And you go down the list, it's just hard. So I think there's some grace that's owed to a lot of these kids. I mean, Artie Levshunov, Sam Rinzel, I could go on the list of those kids that are having some struggles. Sam Dickinson in San Jose, right? Like all the kids from that draft class. Carter Yakimchuk from that draft class is having difficulties in the AHL, particularly defensively. So all that to say, I don't think Canucks fans need to worry or hit the panic button that he's having some real issues. And he is having some real issues both in Minnesota and in Vancouver. When I've watched him play, as a big fan of Zeev, I've still seen that. At the college level, he was so involved in everything. That was the bread and butter of Zeeves. Offensively, he had the shake and bake, and he would make guys miss, and he would have the puck a lot at the offensive zone blue line. He would attack the slot a lot with it. He would beat the first layer, and he would swing below the goal line. And then defensively, he played a very, very active, tight style that allowed him to shut down some of the very best players in college hockey across two very, very, very good seasons in college hockey. But it's hard to play that style. And we see that as well with a lot of young defensemen. The guys who play in your face, that sort of tight gap, they start to give a little bit more in the NHL. They start to, that gap gets a little bit looser. Or if they play tight, they get burned or they take a bad penalty. And then it becomes harder for them to continue to play the style that's made them successful. So I just think for him, it's about getting back to that. It's about trusting in himself, trusting in his ability. He's got the ability. He's got the IQ. He's competitive. I think it's all going to come for him. Am I a little bit lower on him now than I was in the summer? Probably, but I think I'm a little bit lower on a lot of those kids, including Artie, including Sam. They've all had a tough time, and maybe that's a little unfair, but you have to consider that as well. But I still think, is he going to be a highly productive top 4 defenseman in the NHL who runs a power play and has some big years offensively? Yes. I do start to wonder, is he going to be Mike Green, right? Like that. Everybody always uses Goss Despair for that offensive archetype. I think he's going to be better than that. And Goss Despair's had some big struggles defensively for much of his career. But I kind of think about Mike Green. Mike Green in his peak was a 60, 70 point defenseman, a number 1 defenseman on a top team. Wasn't perfect, but was a very, very good player. Chris Letang kind of in that mold as well. I think that's what Zeev has to be aiming for in the prime of his career. And the prime of his career isn't, even though it is now 2021 for a lot of forwards, including guys like Celebrini, the prime of his career isn't going to be then. It's going to be 24, 25, 26.
One pair of twins we want to talk to you about, the Ruck brothers. Okay, so you've got them higher than most that I've seen. Liam at 31, Marcus at 40. If you were in the Canucks shoes, right, they've got the Minnesota first round pick, their own second, and a San Jose second, would you be making a strong push to pick both of them? And if the Canucks get one of them, Liam obviously being the first, if the Canucks get one, do you think that would dissuade other teams from taking Marcus, or would other teams be happy to just have one of the brothers?
Well, you've caught me at a good time because I spoke with both of the brothers on the phone yesterday, and Willie Desjardins, they're obviously a familiar name for Canucks fans. Their coach in Medicine Hat a few days prior to that. And I was on the phone this morning with Aaron Volpatti, who's their sort of mental coach. And they're very interesting players, kids, prospects, and they haven't been shy about the fact through their representatives about the fact that they want to play together. These aren't kids who are saying we want to go our separate ways and we want you to take us if you like us. They are telling teams, or at least hinting to teams by the sounds of it and the way that they talk to me, that, hey, look, if you can make this happen for us, it would truly mean a lot. We're not going to pretend like we don't want it or we'd like to go our separate ways. And if that hurts them, I'll be interested to see whether that hurts them or helps them. But they want to stay and continue to play together. I asked them both about college, and they wouldn't tip their hats because they're focused, as you would expect, on being playing with a top team in Medicine Hat. But I would guess, and this is not backed by any sourcing, but I would guess that they're going to play in college together next year for their post-draft season rather than returning to Medicine Hat, although Medicine Hat is a great setup for them. But it's going to be an interesting conversation into the draft. It's going to be they're going to be hot commodities at the Combine in Buffalo. I like them both as players. They aren't perfect players. You would expect that kids who produce 100 points and co-lead the WHL in scoring would be top 20 picks, right? That's typically what happens. And we just saw Ben Kindle, who we were just talking about earlier, Ben Kindle, 99-point season a year ago, 12th overall, right? That's typically what happens. The layer to that this year is that the WHL is the weakest it's been in a long, long time because of they were the league in the CHL that was most impacted by the top guys going to to college hockey. And B, they're 5'11 and a half forwards who both project as wingers, even though one of them plays mostly center, although they've both played the wing at times because they have Noah Davidson and Schaefer Gordon Carroll, 2 top 2027 centers there as well, who've often played on that line. But you're looking at 5'11 future wingers who aren't great skaters and need to work on their skating. They're both very hardworking. They're trustworthy. I think that will help. Like, they're go-to penalty killers there. They're first over the board for defensive zone, late in games, all of that. So there's a respect for their work ethic, their competitiveness, their skill level, their smarts. All of that is there, but they aren't, despite the production, sort of clear first round picks, right? So that also might actually benefit them in terms of playing together. Like, if they were both first round picks, it becomes harder to acquire both and to justify it. If one's a late first and one's a late second, suddenly you might have a chance to get both of them. And then the team that picks the first one, I wonder whether other teams will second guess taking the second one after that as well. Like, there's going to be a little bit of that happening at draft tables, I think. But it's interesting. And if you're the Canucks, I understand why you guys are interested in it, because they grew up watching the Sedins. They're from Osoyoos, and they grew up Canucks fans, right? So it's not lost on them either. I'm sure they've been asked, they're tired of being asked about the Sedins. I tried for my upcoming story not actually to ask them about the Sedins, but it's a thing, right? So it's something that everybody's going to be following. And frankly, 2 years from now, the Hockey Canada is going to have to make a decision on it for the World Juniors, right? Like, there's a chance that they're both in that mix, and potentially next year, but more likely the following year, right? So that piece of it is interesting. One of them got invited to the CHL USA Prospects Challenge this year, and one of them didn't. There's all sorts of things at play with those two.
One last question before we let you go. You mentioned your project ranking every team's prospect pool right now. You start at 32 and gradually work your way up to number 1. We won't ask you to specifically tell us in advance where the Canucks are ranked, but when you look at where Vancouver currently stands, they're starting a rebuild. How does a prospect and just overall pool of young talent look compared to other rebuilding teams? How much work is there to be done, essentially?
It's a good pool. It's not a great one, is how I would qualify it. They're missing the premium guy, in part because I've graduated Zeev. So that's a spoiler, if you will. Like, Zeev will not be included just because he hasn't played in the AHL this year. Zeev will not be included on their list. Had Zeev been on their list, then maybe you're a few spots higher, kind of thing. Without Zeev, like, you start to look at, okay, who are the core pieces of the pool? That doesn't mean they're going to be core pieces of the NHL club, but it's Ugrin, it's Tom, it's Coots, it's Pettersson 2.0. Like, those are your guys, and it's Lekkerimaki, obviously. What are they, right? Like, in terms of the grand scheme of what a future Stanley, like, getting back to what the Canucks were a decade ago, what does that look like? And what are those pieces in that puzzle? I think Lekkerimaki is going to score 30 goals in the NHL at some point, but he's always going to be an imperfect player. Coots, middle six center, like, that's what he is, right? The 2D, you've got probably a top 4 guy in there and a number 5, number 6 guy in there. Like, they aren't the foundational pieces. And you look around the league at the other, now you need Zeev to be that, right? Like, Zeev, if he's the centerpiece of the Quinn Hughes trade, he has to be that, or you have to get that. Maybe you need 2 or 3 guys of that caliber, and you have to get one in the draft this year. You have to make sure that whoever you pick in the draft this year becomes that piece for you. But they don't have a Michael Misa, a Porter Martone, a James Haggins. Not that those guys are necessarily number 1s or number 2s on a Stanley Cup winning team either, but they're needle movers if they hit and they become the ceiling version of what their projection looks like. And I don't think that even if Ugrin, Lekkerimaki, Coots all hit their ceiling, are they true needle movers? I think the answer is probably still no.
Scott, this was a ton of fun. Thanks so much for doing this. Anything you want to plug other than your draft rankings?
No, the Ruck story will be fun. I'm sure Canucks fans will enjoy that. I've got a bunch of other features coming on a lot of the kids in the draft, and then we'll be right in before we know it into Mem Cup and Frozen Four, and I'm very excited for the Frozen Four. Has the potential. We'll see which teams end up there, because sometimes it's not always the star-studded ones, as we know in college hockey. But there's the potential for a really good Frozen Four this year. So I'm eagerly sort of crossing my fingers that a certain few teams end up in Vegas for that, and then we'll be in Kelowna and the Mem Cup, and that should be fun. Brantford feels like a wagon, but you never know. It's going to be a good home stretch here, and then Slovakia for U18 Worlds. Can't wait for that. So, no shortage of stuff coming from us at the Athletic on the prospect side.
Right on. We'll enjoy the next few months. Thanks again for doing this.
Cheers, guys.
There he is, Scott Wheeler. That was a ton of fun. I like that stuff about the Ruck brothers, and he made a really good point there too, Harm, about if it's going to hurt them if they go out and say, "Hey, we'd like to play together." That was really interesting to me.
Yeah, well, I was trying to game it out where if the Canucks took Liam with either the Minnesota pick or with their own second rounder, which would be 33rd or something like that, would that make other teams not want to take Marcus then? And it was also interesting. I think the consensus so far has been Liam late first round and then Marcus late second round. Scott had them much closer together. I think he had Liam at, I want to double check this because I actually wrote this down.
Liam at 31, Marcus at 40.
Marcus at 40. So he has them bunched in a lot closer together. And I'm curious to watch more tape on these guys. If that's how you truly feel about them, then I think it's easier to justify maybe trying to pull something off to get all of them. I know initially I was a little bit skeptical about the idea just because I want them to take the best players possible. Yeah. I don't want them to just take players because it'd be a romantic storyline. But the more that I talk to prospect experts, draft experts, it doesn't seem as outlandish as maybe it originally did.
All right, let's get to our Bet365. Oh, no, before that, backup Jake, Tankathon. We got to do Tankathon, unfortunately. I don't like doing it. We got to do it.
Just give me 1 second to set that up here.
All this delay just to see them pick third overall again.
I know. It happens every day. And like Jake, I don't know if you've seen the data that Primary Jake has been putting together.
Primary Jake.
But the Canucks are like picking third 78% of the time in our Tankathon. So it's not good. It's not good. These numbers are not numbering. All right, here we go.
Oh,
number 1 overall. Let's go.
Jake, you have been promoted. You're no longer backup Jake. You're primary Jake, because I think that's the second time with Jake Frazier as our producer that the Canucks have gotten first overall. Am I wrong about that?
I don't think they've gotten first with me before.
Okay.
We had one with other Jake as well.
This is getting damn confusing.
This is getting too complicated.
This is getting complicated. But the Canucks get the first overall pick. Seattle moves up 10 spots, of course they do, to the second overall pick. And then the Rangers move up 1 spot to third. Calgary drops 2. Chicago drops 2. Love to see it. Love to see it. Canucks get the first overall pick in today's Tankathon. All right, now let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day. Yesterday, I called it. I said Venezuela at plus 185 odds. Beat the Americans. What a phenomenal final to the World Baseball Classic. It was awesome. It was a great game to see. Yeah. Did you get to catch it, Harm?
I didn't. I don't remember what I was doing. Oh, I was at the game yesterday, the Canucks Panthers game. So I couldn't make it, and then I got caught up watching some other hockey games. But I saw the score at the end and was happy for the Venezuelans.
Yeah, it was a good one. I was watching. I was watching on 2 screens. It was great. It was awesome. All right, let's go back to hockey. Tonight, looking for a home dog. Oh, I like this one. Let's go with this one. The Calgary Flames play host to the St. Louis Blues. The Flames are home underdogs tonight. I am taking Flames money line at plus 105, whereas the Blues are the favorites at minus 125. We're taking Flames money line at plus 105. There are few things more stressful than a close hockey game. One late back check could make all the difference between a chance at playoff glory or an early spring tea time, and that's why at Bet365, an official partner of the NHL, they're offering 3-goal early payout. If the team you're riding goes up 3 goals at any point in the game, they'll pay your bet out early. Hockey fans have enough things to stress about, and with 3-goal early payout, now your bets don't have to be one of them. Bet365, download the app today. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. All right, fun show. Our thanks again to Scott Wheeler for joining us on today's show. We will wrap it up there. For my co-host Harmon Dial and our technical producer Jacob Lazar and Jake Fraser, my name is Dave Bugelli. Thanks so much to episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.